It's your eye health experts, Prevent Blindness Texas, and welcome to Eye Spiring, a conversation about all things vision and life. Hello and welcome to Eye Spiring with Prevent Blindness Texas. We are inspiring a brighter vision, and I'm your host, Heather Patrick, with Prevent Blindness Texas. I'm the CEO. Who is PBT? Well, for almost 70 years, PBT has provided critical vision care to Texas' most vulnerable citizens by providing early detection screening services, eye health education, navigation services, and financial resources for exams, glasses, and other treatment needs. We focus on vulnerable and underserved populations most at risk for possible vision problems. Last year, Prevent Blindness Texas served over 50,000 individuals and educated more than 80,000 people. I am super excited about today. I had the privilege and opportunity to take the first health coaching program at the University of Houston Population Health Program with Dr. Adam Martinez, and he's our guest. And so for me, it was an incredible experience, one we're going to talk a little bit about, but he has an incredible background, a very interesting perspective, and so we're going to put him on the hot seat today, but just get his perspective and life lessons and some key takeaways. So currently, he is a national board-certified health and wellness coach, and he is the administrative director of the University of Houston Population Health Education and director of the university's Integrative Health and Wellbeing Coaching Program. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Martinez and give us your life story in like 4 minutes,
Sure, in
Adam.
4 minutes. Uh-oh.
Yes.
Well, good. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's certainly a privilege and an honor to be here with you. And also because you have been, as you said, with our program as well. So it's good to see you. My background is in education. I have been teaching for anywhere from high school to undergraduate and graduate levels. Most of my background has been around developing academic programs that sometimes I've taken over, sometimes I've turned those over and worked with other disciplines, in my work with other disciplines, I should say. So what for me I bring to the table is a strong understanding of how we can understand different concepts like population health, or when we talk about integrative health, what does that mean? That is something I've enjoyed doing very much. This time around, as I developed this particular program, and others that are more related to population health, this is one that I wanted to take on, and so I was. Without really asking for it, I was offered the opportunity to become director of the program, and I am just thrilled and excited to do that. So, again, my background is in education. I have a master's degree in Spanish, a master's degree also in theology, and we'll say more about that in a little bit. Yeah, so that's a big piece of me.
That's awesome. I can't envision you teaching in high school, so tell me about that. I want to know what that experience was like.
Yeah. I absolutely loved it. You know, people always say, you know, your first year teaching, it will either make you or break you. And I was lucky enough to have mentors from other faculty that really helped me out. And one of the things they said was, be fair and and consistent, right? And let them see that you're being fair and consistent. Because once you say something, no matter what, you have to do exactly what you said. Yeah. So I held on to that like for dear life, right? And finished the year in a just pretty remarkable way. That I remember it at one of the final exams that we had. One of my students, they're very strict about final exams and all that. And at the end of that first year, I saw one of them during the exam take a note, and he put it in his pocket. So afterwards, I said to him, you're not supposed to do that. You know, you don't do that during an exam. So I just simply took it, and he says, "Oh no, I'm done with my exam, Mr. Martinez." So I put it in my pocket, went home, and that evening I took it out, and it said, "I hate to admit it, Richard or whoever it was meant to go to, he says, but this is the best theology class I have ever had. So that set the stage for me of what was possible, right,
Yeah.
as far as being in education.
Yeah, well, I have a 17-year-old. I was sharing with Wendy um, before you got here. I'm like, this is, that summer before they go into their senior year, and it was the same way with my daughter. It's like constant, right? Because they think they're so ready for freedom. And I'm like, oh, it is such a hard, that this summer is just, I think, the hardest summer. That age of 17 when you're so close and yet still far away
Yeah.
from what it really means to be an adult, is very challenging. So I think
Yes.
anybody that teaches high school,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
They're somewhere in limbo.
yes, they are. Well, they're trying to figure it out, right? And you're trying to navigate with them, and there's just this constant push and pull, right? Of freedom, right? Of independence, of responsibility.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay, so let's dive in a little more. How did you first connect with Prevent Blindness Texas?
So my first connection was through you, as we were introduced by my supervisor, Dr. Bettina Beach, and introduced us in terms of what you were doing here with Prevent Blindness Texas. And then, long story short, you also became our student with the program itself. So that really was my first exposure to what the mission of Prevent Blindness Texas is all about. And from the very beginning, we were just thrilled to have you.
Well, thank you. It was an amazing experience. So now you've had all these different perspectives, served in these different roles, and so why is health so important to you, and particularly integrated health so important to you?
So I would say first, in terms of health, I think one of the more significant things that have happened in my life is growing in a family that has had a lot of diabetes, right? And I've seen, as the youngest in the family of 6, I saw the impact that it was having on my parents and then my siblings that were older. And when my numbers started to get kind of close to pre-diabetes and then briefly became diabetic, I was lucky enough to have a physician that spent time more than usual sort of helping me understand how this works. And as a result, I dropped 40 pounds and haven't had to deal with that ever since, right? And for in my case. But it wasn't just the losing the weight, but the impact that it had on my overall health. So with that experience, I have enjoyed being able to talk to people about health in terms of how it impacts the quality of life, right? Because I've seen that. And integrative, I think for me has been very important because when I think of integrative health, I think of person, right? I think of the whole person. And so integrative health often refers to the integration of traditional medicine and conventional means of healing, as well, conventional and unconventional, I should say, means of healing. But to me, person and the dignity of the human person has always been so important throughout my life. And so, in that, even from childhood, to be honest, without knowing that that's what it was called, has been very important. And so I love the aspect of integrative health as one that considers not just the one symptom that you have, but really the full scope of who you are and your uniqueness and the context in which you live and how can you thrive.
It's beautifully put. So what are you passionate about, professionally and personally?
So I would say professionally, definitely health coaching. It's changed my life. And being an educator, not just an educator, as I've said, but an educator in population health and health coaching. So I'm definitely passionate about health coaching. I'm also very passionate about the well-being of particularly the poor and the underrepresented, right? There's something about that as a kid that I always felt called to try to make a difference in that. So professionally, everything that I've done has always been about trying to improve not only my credentials, so to speak, and what I had to offer professionally, but always to ensure that I was mentoring underrepresented, underserved populations or students in particular. I would say that personally, uh, I enjoy fitness. I enjoy working out. I enjoy any time that I can spend time outdoors, hiking, camping, anything that will keep me active. I just have learned and have trained sort of my body that if I miss a workout or I don't go work out, that my body feels it, right?
Yep.
You can feel it, and the opposite is also true. It just elevates your outlook and how you feel about yourself.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting when we look back and even as children, there were certain things that really truly become like the backbone of our lives or the fabric of our lives, right? Looking back to see what our calling was, even though we didn't know it at the time, the things that drove us forward towards our calling.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What makes you work hard every day? And I know you work hard every day.
Thank you. Yes. So I think for me, well, first of all, there's always been a little bit of a perfectionist in me.
No, would have never guessed that about you.
Yeah. That's been part of me from the very beginning. But I think what I've learned is just how critical what I feel, is not only for my career, but really for the people that we serve, right? Yeah. So what drives me every day, that helps me, that gets me to working hard, is one, a desire to have an excellent program in health coaching. So I'm driven by that. I'm also driven by sort of a vision and imagination of how people are being impacted or can be impacted through the experience, the positive experience with a health coach. I'm also driven, to be honest with you, by the leadership that I have experienced at the University of Houston. I'm driven by that because I feel that you're supported in such a way that you feel like there isn't a whole lot that you cannot do.
That's pretty amazing.
Yes.
That is.
It is rare.
Yeah, it is rare.
It is rare, and I'm just so grateful for that and the colleagues that I have as well.
But I think that shows in just the success that the program has had overall, right? Because the population health program is fairly new at the University of Houston.
Yes.
Right? But it has had a major impact already.
Yes.
And so I think that is a testament to the leadership and kind of giving you the wings to go and do the things you need to do and believing that you can. And that's pretty amazing.
Right. It's been one of the things that has always driven me is, some people, if it's something new, you run away from it, right? For me, if it's something new, it excites me. And my supervisor recognized that, and we were able to bring those strengths together to work on behalf of the program.
Yeah, I'm very similar.
Yeah.
I look at change as an opportunity, new things as an opportunity. I don't, as my staff will probably attest, I don't really believe in the status quo. And not everybody likes that or feels comfortable in that.
Right.
I recognize that.
Right.
But I'm very much the same way.
Right.
I want to try new things. That's where innovation and creativity come into it, right? And if we really want to solve some of these larger issues, we're going to have to try new things because what we're doing isn't working.
Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
All right. So going back, and I think I know the answer, but did you always want to be in this field? And maybe it was, not necessarily you knew you wanted to be in population health, but it sounds like you knew early on you wanted to be in the larger higher ed kind of world. But, how did you get to population health?
So I like to describe it as a long and windy road.
Best path far.
Thank goodness I was not in charge of that. So, I would say that very early on, first of all, as I've mentioned, I think a little bit earlier, there was always something about uh, the faith component in our family and in our upbringing that always taught me that there was something beautiful about being able to heal people, right? As a Christian, as a Catholic, I always was I always admired, right, the person of Christ, in what I saw and what I was, exposed to. But he was like my superhero, right? And so I kind of grew up with that idea. And and then there was something about the poor and the downtrodden or the outcasts that always drew me, right? And then later on, as I said, having had exposure to a Jesuit education, um, where it wasn't just about good grades, it was also about learning how to study and understanding our education in the context of our lives, right? And how that transforms our lives. And that itself, those two factors were the beginning of what later became a career in education, um, and now, all the way up to my doctorate, that I have now. But yeah, so.
So how'd you bridge into population health?
So thank you for that. So for me, this whole idea of being able to make a difference in the lives of communities, right, is where my interest in population health
That makes sense.
connected,
Yeah.
right? So the more I learned also about population health, the more I realized that this population health was not about preventing illness per se, but it was a whole new approach to understanding health. And by that I mean that it was about understanding how do we improve the quality of life of different groups and populations. So it always brought me back to the importance of people, not so much healthcare or systems per se, but how it impacted populations. And that became for me a way to marry both my education, my background in education, and my interest in the development of people.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
All right, so who influenced you along this journey?
Yeah, so I would say initially it was definitely my parents, right? And I say that because to my parents, one of the things when I learned this before I even, really pursued any kind of education per se, but I learned from my parents that being educated had nothing to do with the degree you had hanging on your wall, right? That being educated meant being a person of character, being a person of compassion, being a person who cared, and a person who was respectful of other people, right? That's an educated person. And then you throw on top of that, all the wonderful things that I experienced in school, in college, in graduate school, and then a career in higher education. On top of it all that. But that lesson definitely came from my parents. And I would say that in addition to them, the Christ as a loving healer was a major factor and influencer in if you want to use that modern term, in who I am today. Definitely. And then after that became also my teachers who were all about mentoring and helping me feel that that there's very little that I can achieve. And as I said, reconnecting to that in this experience at the University of Houston has been pretty remarkable. And I would say, by the way, that much of what I'm saying here is really more my take on population health, and certainly is not representative officially of the university, but I think one that I sincerely feel and that gives me passion and drive.
And I think talking to you, and the way we came to meet was actually up through kind of a business inquiry, right? Of looking at with health coaching, something that we could incorporate into our mission delivery. But it every time I talk to you, what comes through, whether it was in health coaching, or you have such a deep commitment to serving. And that comes every time I talk to you. And I just think that is so admirable. And you know, in the healthcare business, and ultimately that's where we are, right? There are very few, I think, that take that approach, right? And it just resonates, I think, so deeply with people when you do take that approach.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I somehow I keep coming back to that, you know. So, you know, for me, that's how I bring what I've always learned and what was important to me, and all of a sudden seeing that now here was a line of work and a career in health coaching that brought all those things together for me.
Yeah.
And then you put this great support and leadership on top of that. And I'm just excited to see what we can accomplish with this program moving forward.
Yeah. And talk about being called and knowing your purpose.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So the best advice given to you in your career.
Yeah, I laugh because one of the first things that comes to mind is one of the worst advice that I got. But actually, the best advice is almost the opposite of that, and it was this. And I will say before I answer your question that was the best advice that I received. But there's a second half to that that I've kind of have come to understand myself, right? So what I received, the very best advice that I received was do what you love, right? Do what you love. And what you do is really not work, right? So do what you love. But what I've learned from that is because what you love becomes you, right? And so when you understand that, then you can really talk about a way of life and a career rather than jobs, right?
Yeah.
And frankly, with that kind of understanding, jobs come and go, right?
Yeah.
But our purpose remains the same.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So before we dive into the other questions, something that you said to me, I want to, having kind of that thread of being a perfectionist. So how did you work through that going through health coaching, right? Because from my own experience, right, that perfectionist drives us to solve things, right? Which is good. But for me, that was one of the hardest things learning in health coaching. Now, a year later, it's been incredible in transforming my thought and leadership. But how did you work through that?
Right. That's a really good question because, I've said obviously one of my strengths is and loves is being an educator. Yep. But that also became the challenge in becoming a health coach. Yep. Because as an educator, you want to teach, you want to instruct, you want to show people how. Yep. And that was a language that I had to learn that really changed how I work with people. That's fine in the classroom. It doesn't work in a coaching situation, right? So I would say that was probably one of the biggest things that I had to learn was to be able to work through coaching and by learning how to ask questions that remained client-centered, that elicited meaning for them, and that really took them to sort of reflect on who they were and what is it that they wanted to change, right? And all of that was about them, rather than your perspective or even your thoughts on things.
Yep. Yeah, that is one of the biggest takeaways that everybody, you always think you're a good listener, you ask her questions, then you take health coaching, you're like, nope.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Really learning how to listen and how to ask meaningful questions. And that has translated so much for me in my personal life with my children, right? Really not telling them what to do, but really trying to get at what do they want to accomplish, how
Right.
can I support them, versus telling them how to do it.
Right.
But in my leadership, in my leadership team, I mean, we've really taken a lot of those components.
Uh-huh.
And I've shared them out because it gives you just a different perspective, but a different set of tools to lead. So, all right. So, what is integrated health? How do you see it transforming over the next decade? Should it be included in overall health conversations?
Yeah. So, when it comes to integrative health, we're really talking about client-centered, right? A client-centered approach to things that people want to change. I see that it has the power and the potential to continue to change how we look at health and how even healthcare sees itself, right? That when people say health, just the word health, they're really thinking healthcare, right? And health is about the quality of our lives. Are things working the way they're supposed to be working? And what is it about our lives that we need to change in order to have a fulfilling and live up to our full potential, right? So I feel that my tiny little experience with this one physician that spent time, and I'm not advocating or saying that physicians need to spend, hours with patients, but what I am saying is when they value and understand what health coaching is and how it's part of the healthcare team, then they can take advantage of that. And then outside of the healthcare system, it's really about people growing comfortable with what does it mean to have a life or a health coach, health and well-being coach at your side. I think that because of that, the health industry is taking more and more and more of an interest and an understanding of what health coaching is and how it can support them. And I think our use of health coaching, how we pay for health coaching, for example, all of that is taking on a transformation that I think it will be very impactful over the next decade.
That's good. Good.
Yeah.
All right. So, talk a little bit more when you say health coaching. What does that mean? And how can we leverage it more effectively now? Because I still think people see it as maybe like on the periphery, right? Or that's a luxury. Or, is it really effective? So, talk about what it is and how we can leverage it right now, specifically.
Right. So I would say this. I would say that I almost want to talk about really what population health is first, right? Because understanding that helps us to understand for us at the university why, we're investing in this program, right? And that is to say that, when we understand population health as a scientific approach, right, to understanding that health is not just about how do we manage or illness, but it's also about how do we improve the quality of life of people.
Right.
And so to leverage that, I think we need to understand that population health is, for example, data-driven and about being preventive. And so when we look at health coaching, we understand that one of the ways to leverage it is to look at the work of population health as a data-driven scientific approach. That what we're doing here, therefore, is not just, this sounds good, let's do it this way, let's do it that way, right? It's scientific and it's based on what science has proven about behavior change. It is data-driven, and as a result, we're able to focus onto different populations and how our research can translate into everyday actions that will make a difference in the lives of those populations. I think the other piece about about health coaching that we can leverage is the many resources that are available in the community itself. We have to be able to see that and partner with other organizations. And that's, again, going back to population health, that's really what that's about. Population health also understands itself as being not only interdisciplinary, but a what's the word, conduit, so to speak, for bringing different partnerships together. Um, I think that's a way to leverage the impact and the understanding of health coaching itself.
So,
There's other things, many other things that we could talk about.
right.
Yeah.
For the average person, what would you say? How would you? What's your pitch for
Right.
health coaching?
I think for me, I always like to look at when I speak to the average person out there, I'll always come back to the conversation, the question, are there things, if you could change one thing in your life, what would that be? What do you see is going on in your life that would change your life in such a way that it could really improve your happiness and sense of fulfillment, right? And rarely do I get, I don't have anything to change. They
Not
might
one
say,
thing.
I don't know what I'm going to
Right.
change. I'm
Yeah.
not sure about what to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
But I think our human nature is such that there are always things that we can certainly improve on. Not only improve on, but change for the sake of our overall lives and health and well-being. And by the way, that is one of the things I love about what I'm doing. We talk about health coaching, but it's really health and well-being coaching, right? The well-being to me, while it's not used as often, has a very strong resonance for what I believe in, right? Because uh, I really do. I have fun when I ask that question of people because then that brings us to a whole nother um, conversation, and so um, that's my initial pitch, right? The second piece to that, I think, is we get into conversations about have you ever tried to change a bad habit, right? And name one, right? I've tried to stop smoking. Okay, well, what did you do? What worked for you? What didn't?
Yep.
But also to set them up for an understanding that health coaching is not a one-time thing, that it happens over the course of time, over multiple sessions, because what we're doing is creating sustainable change, right?
Yep.
So it's those kinds of under that kind of understanding of what health and well-being coaching is all about, that I think can make a difference in how people understand what health coaching and the difference that it can make in their lives.
Yeah. And I look at it as it can serve as a partner, right, through any phase of your health journey, right? Whether it's you're dealing with a chronic illness or you want to lose weight, right? It runs the spectrum, but it really is a partnership to help you reach your potential, whatever you set that potential to be. Right?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And the other thing, Heather, that I would say is that, we often, or let me rephrase that. Let me say that health coaching, we think about health coaching and well-being, it's really about every aspect of a person's life. It's not just their physical well-being, it's also their emotional well-being, it's their spiritual well-being, right? It's your financial well-being, right? It's every aspect of what it means to be a human being are things that can be dealt with or worked through in health coaching. That's the well-being part of it. And as I've said, that's one of the beautiful things that I love about health and well-being coaching, is that you take the total person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and you look at how all those pieces again kind of weave together, right? And we get so into the day to day of our lives, right? That that it's just helpful to take that step back and really see how all these different pieces really are impacting our well-being and our health.
Correct.
Right? And one of the things that still to this day stands out to me, and we've talked about it for a long time in terms of how stress impacts you, right? How bad stress is for you. But going through that program and really learning about all the different ways stress impacts your body was eye-opening. And I've been in healthcare for 20 plus years, but I think we just really don't understand still the true effect that stress has. And that comes from all different places in our lives.
Right.
And so I think that is the great thing about health coaching is really you do look at all the different components.
Yeah. And by the way, that's another reason why we refer to it as integrative health and well-being, right? Because it pulls all that together as well. Another example that I often refer to try to pull people away from that physical health per se is to ask them to think about when we get into conversations about let's say what's stressing them out, or that turns into financial issues. I lost my job, or I'm not making enough, or whatever the case might be. That often turns into a conversation about how that's impacting relationships, how that's impacting your work, right? How that's impacting your own self-esteem. And it all comes down to a financial situation, right? Sometimes it's the other way around. A person might say, I'm just not getting along well with people at work, right? And when you dig deeper and deeper and deeper, you come to that understanding of how that is really coming out of something else that's going on in your life, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's just one example. Again, if it's anything to do with the human experience, it's something that can be dealt with in health and well-being coaching.
Now, two things. Talk a little bit about the difference between therapy and coaching, and then talk about how the program at U of H is set up differently, what makes it unique.
So, first of all, therapy and coaching. That's a really good question, because a health and wellness coach is not, you don't prescribe, you don't diagnose, right? That's not your world. You leave that for people that know that specific. Like, for example, the example that I gave about finances, right? You're not a financial type of guy, right? It's not that. It's how it's impacting your life.
Right.
So the same is true. You're not a physician. Some health coaches are physicians, but by and large, coaching is not about being a physician or diagnosing. It's the same way as a therapist. The idea is this. In therapy, for example, a person goes deep into their lives in order to make sense of that and figure out what's going on in their lives, right? It's about depth and clarity in that regard. We could say a lot more about that. But what I want to say is that with health coaching, you go deep, just deep enough that ultimately it's about moving the person forward, right? Yeah. You're not there to psychoanalyze. You're not the therapist. You're not, the physician. You're there to understand and to listen, to hear and understand what you're being told, and to help them create action steps that move them forward to create sustainable change, right? So that doesn't happen, as I said, overnight, but it really is meant to be more of a long-term approach to helping people.
Yeah. And then what makes the program at U of H unique?
I think the University of Houston, one of the things that we looked at from the very beginning was our commitment to serving the community that's around us, right? Yeah. And it's not just the immediate vicinity of the university, but of the city. And in that regard, we wanted to make a program that was very affordable for people to be able to come to. Mm. If you look at other similar training programs across the country, compared to that are similar in scope to ours is extremely affordable. Mm-hmm. And that was intentional. right? From the very, very beginning. And I think that with that is trying to instill in our coaches that we're training a desire to serve the community, right?
Yeah.
And that's important because built into the second phase of our program is an opportunity for our coaches to be able to work with clients from within the community while they are getting mentored, supervised through that experience. It's sort of like a service learning uh, practicum, so to speak, right? So we're very proud that we've been able to incorporate that as part of the program, not outside of it.
Yeah.
And I think that this question poses for us opportunities of how we can grow our program by always keeping in mind the needs of our community. What is there? What are the needs? And because that drives us, I feel that our development of our program will be responsive to the needs of our community.
Yeah. And I love that it, at least in the initial cohort, and I assume going forward, but all different people, all different backgrounds. And it was such an incredible experience to get to know them and their stories and learn with them, and just really, truly, just very diverse perspectives and experiences.
Right.
And it was amazing.
Right.
It was amazing.
I think that's one of the things that's very humbling to me, right? Is to bring these many people, the people together with these kinds of backgrounds,
Yeah.
right, and experiences. It's pretty remarkable. You talk about population health as also being sort of partnership driven, where you see that just in the students that we receive.
Yeah.
For example, this cohort that we have this year, we have several MDs, we have nurse practitioners, we have yoga instructors, we have nutritionists, we have you name it. I mean, it's across the board, and to watch them interact with each other, all with the same goal, right?
Yeah.
And I can tell you this that. It's usually the educators in the room and the doctors, the MDs, that really struggle with how do you ask questions that is not didactic, so to speak,
Yeah.
but rather is a strong exercise in listening,
Yeah.
right? But I also admire that they've taken that challenge on, and it's a learning process.
It is a learning process, and that is one of the hardest things.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I get paid to make decisions. Like, that's what I'm like. I get paid to tell people, like, how we're going to do this. And then I'm like, it is a remarkable journey to
Yes.
really take a step back. And it really is about asking the questions and
Right.
getting to the heart of, and that's in family, in business, in coaching, really alignment. That's what.
Right.
I think when it's all said and done,
I love that word.
you come to alignment, but it's because you've asked the right questions and you're willing to listen. You're seeking to understand truly. And it was just a remarkable process for
Yes,
me.
yes.
So, and I've maintained the friendship. So our coaching group, and we're all very different, but we stay in contact.
Right.
And we've supported each other on the different things we're trying to accomplish. And that was a bonus
Right.
of being a part of the program.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. And I think that was part of from the very beginning, what we designed it so that as you form cohorts, you form these networks and these support for each other. Because health coaching really is something you learn to do, over a long period of time as well. You get the basic training, you get, so to speak, but an experience also.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. But at the same time, the more practice you've had at listening to what is meaningful in the lives of people, and as I've said, I think to me, getting to that level, right, is when all of a sudden you're in what I would call a kind of a sacred space.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
That requires tremendous confidentiality, trust, because you're the coach, right? But unlike a football coach that will tell you exactly what you need to do to get good at what you're doing, this type of coach is here to listen, is here to help you form your own actions, to help provide the resources when needed, but to guide you through what you want to change over a long period of time. And I would add one other thing, Heather, is to this whole conversation is that, you know, when you think about a health coach, what I tell prospective students, but also clients, is that it is about the science of behavior change, right? That's the reason why I can deal with nutrition, or a person wants to lose weight, or a person is having difficulties with relationships, or whatever the case might be. It's like, how can you be an expert in all those things? Well, first of all, the program provides you with the basic things that you need, the tools that you need to work through all of those major areas, number one. But in addition to that, your job is not to be an expert in all of those areas. Your job is to be an expert in behavior change. Right. And that is to me very exciting, to have that, or to be that as a coach.
Yeah. It was the science of it. I mean, I'm fascinated by people. I was a psychology major for 3 years before I became a business major. Separate story.
Yes, I was a psychology major too.
I love to understand why people do what they do, but the science behind it, and really being able to learn that was really, again, truly beneficial, because honestly, in any leadership position you're in, understanding why people do what they do, and how to help shift to go where they want to go. I think one of the key pieces for me, one of the key takeaways of the program was people already have the tools. They already really know. They have the knowledge. They have the ability. Coaching helps them find it, basically. Yes. And I really appreciated that. Right. Because so many times our children have the ability, right? Helping them find it, right? Our staff has the ability, helping them find it. And so I think, there are just so many skills and lessons that I learned through the program that have just been so incredibly valuable.
I've applied those, for example, even in my own personal life as a parent, right? Yeah. Where I've learned both through my own reflection, my own experiences, but also through the mentorship of others, that, for example, in working through with children sometimes and young adults, it's about asking questions so as to find, or so as to achieve understanding, greater understanding. As you said, we seek to understand, and you're right on with that. As opposed to telling them what they should be doing, right? And the more we can sort of keep that in mind, the more we honor the sense of dignity and self-efficacy, if you will, of the individual.
Yeah. I just started the program last year, and Reagan, who's my oldest, was trying to decide where she was going to live. So she's at the University of Texas in Arlington. And I wanted her to live with roommates. But she was pretty set on, no, I think I want my own apartment, right? And so I was like, I'm going to practice what I've learned. And so I walked through a series of questions that I asked her to think about. And then based on the answers she, came to, then make a decision. And I would support whatever decision she made. But to think about these things, and one of them was, what would help you thrive? Do you think living alone or having a support network, right? And so I just asked a series of questions, and at the end of the day, she came back and she had thought about it, and we had a really good conversation. She ended up moving in with roommates, right? But which I'm glad. But it was such a different approach, because honestly, I would have been like, I think you need to do this, right? And here are all the reasons why, based on my experience and my knowledge, right? But truly, it was a turning point in our relationship. But it really was, because it helps her then to think about things too, right? They're learning how to assess things differently. And so it was a great experience.
Right. It's about trusting that they can figure it out eventually.
Yep.
They have what they need.
Yep.
They just need you to kind of support that around them.
Yep.
And so the same in similar way in health coaching, that's really what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you are a health coach, right? So talk just a little bit about kind of what that process was for you. Why become a health coach? I mean, you have your doctorate, you are a high level in your career, right? You're serving the community. So why become a health coach?
I think for me, becoming a health coach, when I saw what it was all about more and more and more, and the more I looked into it, the more it spoke to the things that I valued the most, right? And so I became a health coach because I wanted to be able to find a way to enter into that sacred space, so to speak, in meaning what is truly meaningful for people, and to be able to make a difference, right? To make a difference there. So I had the opportunity to be part of a team when we first started sort of envisioning what a health coach training program would look like. And then, we hired a consultant that helped us, that she's, certainly well accomplished person. And we developed that. We've continued to develop that over time. But at some point, it became clear to me that I needed to jump into it as a health coach myself. And it wasn't so much, it was maybe the title or the approach, the training was new, but the desire to be a health coach had always been there, right? It just was using different language. And so it connected with me, and that's why I jumped into becoming a health coach, and as you said earlier, now a national board certified health and wellness coach.
So was there at any point during that process you're like, no, I can't do this?
Yeah.
Or was there? Yeah. You're like, why am I doing this?
I think when you start practicing how to coach, and people keep telling you, you sound like a teacher. You sound like a teacher. You're like, oh my God, I can't do this.
Yeah.
It was learning through that and working through that. But I think it took some pretty outstanding mentors to help me through that. And, it's not unique to me and to other people or to perfectionists, but I think that was a challenge. But I'm glad that I stuck through it. It was fun. It took me out of my comfort zone oftentimes, but it was also very, very fulfilling.
There is a point where, you struggle, and then it starts to click. And it really is, it's like that dramatic, right?
Yeah.
That, I can't do this, or it is just all these things. And I think a lot of times it's in our head too. And then all of a sudden, one day you're in the session and you're like, oh, I know how to do this. Like, I can do this.
Yes.
That was pretty amazing. Like, you feel it. You feel I think the confidence change, right? And you just see the conversation flow different. You're like, I can do this.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I think that part of that transformation is when you're able to take what you know about health coaching, and all of a sudden you start to feel like it's not here. It's really here. It's more of an experience and a relationship that you have with people, that and you see that the impact that it's having, or you feel that, also not only about what they're saying, but how you're watching them grow. That is where health coaching becomes a part of who you are. Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so any myths that you want to bust about health coaching, integrative health?
How much time do we have?
Right, the biggest one that you've heard that you want to make sure.
Yeah. So one of the biggest myths I think about health coaching is, I don't need anybody to tell me what to do. right? That's one of the things. I don't need anybody to tell me what to do, or it's too expensive, or I don't have time for that, uh, or misunderstanding that health coaching is about any aspect of your life, right? I think that thinking about it is probably one of the biggest myths per se, is that people think of it as I have to have an illness that I need help with in order to go to health coaching. So, but as I've said, it is long term, and unless you don't have anything to change in your life, you don't need a health coach. You know.
All right, so we've talked a lot about population health, but I want to ask you, where do you see, or how do you see eye health and vision within that population health sphere?
Mm-hmm. Really good question. So, first of all, as I said, population health is data driven, right? And because it's data driven, eye health can take advantage of that data that is being offered or developed, researched, and offered, right, in such a way that you can use that as a tool to help us improve what we our programs related to eye health. So the data driven piece of it also allows us to focus on specific communities or specific populations. In this case, populations that have an interest or that related to blindness, right? And so I see eye health as important to to organizations such as this, because it provides the research and then translates it into actionable um, steps, right, to help you do your job even better. I think that's one thing. The other piece that I see in terms of how it fits is that when you think about what you think about health disparities, which we've not talked a lot about, health disparities or health equity, I should say, and access, or disparities in access. That is where we can look at, for example, um, um, the impact that it's having on people with visual challenges, but really any disability itself, right? So it helps us to be able to understand how do you best serve these populations. The other piece, I think, is understanding that visual challenges also have an impact on our mobility, our ability to do things, our ability to have a sense of independence, and even mental health, right? So when we look at population health as being about how do we improve the quality of life, right? So understanding the impact that has on the community that you serve in this case, you can be sure that what population health is doing is having a major impact, or has the potential to have a major impact on the health and well-being of people.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, it has been amazing to talk to you. Any last, two things, if they remember nothing else of our conversation, what are the two things you want people to take away?
I think I would want them to take away what I always love to refer to or remember as the author, or as um, um, Created for Greatness, right? Alexander Havard. He talks about how we are all created for greatness, right? And created for greatness doesn't mean that we all have to be, some high and mighty position, but that we are all called to be human beings that have a deep and profound and fulfilling life, right? But he says one of the issues and challenges that we have as people is when we think about humility. Humility, it's oftentimes us saying, "Oh, I don't have that gift, or I don't have that ability." No, yeah, because if I say that I do, then I'm going to come across like I have a big head or something, right? But he says humility, he says, is really not only knowing that you are created for greatness, but that you are sitting in the presence of people who are also created for greatness, right? And when you have that understanding and that sense of presence about other people, wow, right? I have nothing better to do than to sit in my life in the presence of people that are also created for greatness. And what that means for people out there that are challenging or that are struggling with areas that they want to change in their lives. It's about, that my last message, so to speak, would be that we are all created for greatness, right? And therefore you deserve, right, and should seek the work of a health and well-being coach. And for those that love helping and serving and improving the quality of others, please look into the program here at the University of Houston.
Yeah. I will say, I've talked throughout, but really, truly, last year was an incredible year for me in terms of growth and transformation. And it was going through the health coaching program and then working with an executive coach. And what I went in thinking the program was about and what I came out knowing what the program is about were very different.
Yeah.
But truly incredible experience. And much of that too was you and Dr. Lawson and just the whole entire program, everybody that was associated with it, their commitment and passion for health coaching and for teaching, right? Really, and for learning. And I think that was evident too as we were going through the process, right? All of the people that were involved, right? It was all a learning process. And
Right.
I just think that was, it was really incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I've always thought that it's just been pretty remarkable that from the very beginning, before we launched the program itself, we actually became an approved program, right, of the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching. And one of the reasons why that is so important is the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching is a partner with the National Board for Medical Examiners. So that to me, says a lot about the level of standard and expectation and professionalism that is required not only of programs but of the individuals that are going through this program. And so that ultimately benefits our clients, right?
Absolutely.
And so I'm very proud of the program that we have.
Yeah, it is powerful. I think it is powerful. And I will go back to, I believe we are all created for greatness. I also believe we're all created for connection.
Yes.
Right? I think connection drives
Huge.
us. Right? And in a world where we are so connected, I think we are more disconnected than ever before. And so I think too, for me, when I think about coaching, and I go back to connection, relationship, partnership, and I just think we all need it. We all need that support in some way, shape, or form. So thank you so much. Thank you for what you do, and for your leadership, and for being here today and sharing your story.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So on that note, we are always interested in having people join our PBT family. We have many different ways to get engaged and connected, from volunteering to going out and speaking on behalf of the organization about eye health, to being on the board, to being at one of our special events, and of course donating. Money moves the mission, and so for us, we would just love to hear from you. You can reach us on our website. You can email us. We are always happy to connect and have a conversation about how you can get involved with PBT and move our mission forward. With that, thank you for being with us today. And we want to remind you to follow iSpiring. And of course, always tell us what your vision is. Thanks. Have a great day.